Is this a nightmare after what seemed to be a perfect dream in 2024? Winless through their first 10 games at 0-7-3. This is not only the worst start in franchise history, it's one of the worst starts the league has ever seen. Key injuries, major roster turnover, and a leaky defense have left the defending champions looking completely lost. Last year's magic is gone, and if something doesn't change soon, this season could be an all-time embarrassment for the defending champions. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to MLS Moves. Please make sure you like this video down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're trying to hit 10,000 by the end of the year. With your help, I know we can do it. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of my videos. Now, the LA Galaxy have had the worst start imaginable to the 2025 season. And there's a lot of questions about why that is. Some people will say it's injuries. Some people will say it's managing. Some people will say that they didn't bring enough reinforcements that could contribute to the team in 2025. But honestly, it's a little bit of all of that, right? It's a mixture of all those things. But the first thing I want to talk about is the injuries this team has sustained in 2025 that really has derailed what they built in 2024. And the first person you have to start off with is the number 10, Riqui Puig. Now, most MLS fans know that Riqui Puig got injured in the Western Conference final game against the Seattle Sounders by tearing his ACL. And it's crazy. He actually finished that game even though he had a torn ACL. And they beat that Seattle Sounders to advance to the MLS Cup final against the New York Red Bulls. Now, everyone knew that he was going to miss a part of the season. Was it 6 months, 7 months, 8 months? That was to be determined. But they knew he was going to miss a good portion of the 2025 season. And most thought that the Galaxy would have enough to get them through that. They're not going to be as good, obviously, but they had enough talent on the team to get them through the Riqui Puig injury, be competitive, and put them in a good position for when he comes back in the summer to make a playoff run and try to repeat in 2025. Well, I don't think many people expected them to be 0-7-3 through their first 10 games. Missing Riqui Puig is definitely detrimental to this team, but they shouldn't be winless in 10 games. But that's what people are going to point to as the biggest reason why this team is struggling in 2025. Another key injury to this team was Joseph Paintsel. He's a very key piece to the team's win in 2024 of MLS Cup, and he was out for the first 6 to 8 weeks with a quad injury. You could tell the attack was not as good because they slid in Diego Fagundes, who I'm personally not high on, but you could see the drop off in 2025 when Paintsel wasn't playing in the first couple weeks or months of the season. So 2 of their DPs were out in the beginning of the season, which would hurt most teams. But I still think that most teams in MLS could at least luck their way into one win. Now, they also had to move off of a couple players for salary budget reasons that they couldn't keep because of the weird MLS rules. MLS rules punishes teams that win, if you didn't notice. They punish teams who win because of the forced parity. They don't want teams to continuously win MLS Cup. So if you win, you're going to be punished. And it started off with Joveljic. Now, Joveljic signed as a U22 in 2021, and this was the final year of his deal where he could be a U22 in 2024. So in the 2025 season, they couldn't keep him without making him a DP because that's the kind of salary he wanted. So this team was forced to move their star striker because they couldn't afford him. And Joveljic is good for 15 and 20 goals, especially on this team when he was playing between Paintsel and Peck and in front of Riqui Puig. Any team losing their striker who scores 15 to 20 goals is going to see a drop off, right, in scoring production. And they did trade for Christian Ramirez from the Columbus Crew, and they did sign Matheus Nascimento from Brazil, who has been a complete flop. He's not done anything when he plays, and if he's not playing, he's injured. He hasn't been good either. So they took their consistent goal scorer and replaced him with a older striker in Christian Ramirez and an injured Brazilian striker who doesn't even score when he plays. And the striker position has become a glaring hole for this team in 2025 after it was good in 2024. They also had to move Gaston Brugman, who was the MLS Cup MVP and filled in for Riqui Puig due to injury and was an absolute stud in that final game, was very instrumental into them winning. They had to trade him to Nashville SC. And they also traded Marky Delgado to LAFC. So what was a very strong group for the LA Galaxy in 2024 became very thin, very fast. And then you have to factor in that Marco Reus, who was a TAM signing in the summer of 2024, 35-year-old German, maybe legend, but at least a Borussia Dortmund legend, right? Was brought in here to be a leader or to contribute in his final days. And all I can say is thank God he's not a DP. Thank God he's not a DP because he's just not giving them anything, especially this year. Many thought that he could step in for Riqui Puig in 2025 until he came back, and he's just not done anything. He's got 1 goal in 5 games. Either he's playing and he's not playing good, or he's injured, not playing at all. He's been a total disappointment for the LA Galaxy, and they can't move off of him quick enough. He has been disappointing, and the players that were needed to step up, like him, like Marky Delgado, like Ramirez, like Matthias Nascimento, have done absolutely nothing for this team in 2025. Now, I'm going to give Christian Ramirez a little bit of a pass because he wasn't necessarily brought in to be the guy up top. He was brought in to be a depth piece, to return home. But he's been forced to be the starter because Nascimento is either hurt or not playing well. And it's not really fair to him, but, it's not good enough. Not good enough for this team. And their back line, Garces, Yoshida, they have not played as well as they did in 2024. They traded Jalen Neal to Montreal. They brought in Zonka from Anderlecht, who's not been that good. And this back line has went back to conceding a lot of goals. And they had found some success down the stretch of the season to help them win MLS Cup in 2024. But this 2025 iteration has just not been good. It's back to what it was in early 2024. You just can't concede 20 goals in 10 matches. You just can't do it, especially when you can't score. You're in trouble if that's the case. Another thing, too, is that Gabriel Peck has completely fallen off this season. Now, is it his fault? Debatable, right? Now, obviously, the pieces he had last year are not playing next to him this year. Up top in Joveljic, behind him in Puig to help set him up. But we're talking about a player who I thought would be the outgoing transfer record in MLS history, beating Miguel Moron, who was the current record in 2019 when he got sold to Newcastle. And he had 16 goals, 15 assists in his debut season for the LA Galaxy last year, helped them win MLS Cup. In 2025, he has 1 goal, 1 assist through 8 games. Completely regressed. And it's sad because he looked like he was on the path to stardom. And they have just completely demolished his momentum. Now, maybe when Puig comes back, he'll be able to pick things back up. It's not a good sign, though, that when Puig is out, he can't produce. Not a good sign. And maybe this will scare off his transfer market. So injuries, players falling off, backline not playing well, all this culminating and just creating the worst season in MLS history, maybe, but definitely LA Galaxy history. And I want to touch on that too, because I want to look and see how does this compare to other bad LA Galaxy seasons. Now, one that comes to mind is the 2017 season when Kurt Onalfo took over for Bruce Arena. Kurt Onalfo was a very, very mediocre manager in MLS. Very mediocre. A lot of fans were upset when he got the job and replaced Bruce. And he had some big shoes to fill, right? Bruce Arena is the MLS GOAT. But even with that season that I remember as being a complete disaster, right? Complete disaster. That was the first year they signed Ramon Alessandrini, and they kind of changed their method as a club where they were wanting to be more, I guess, budget-friendly would be the right term. They wanted to be more effective on how they spent their money. They weren't necessarily trying to spend big, big money, right? They had 3 wins, 5 losses, and 2 draws in that season that most people remember as one of the worst seasons in LA Galaxy history. So even that season, is not as bad as what this season has been. So I was looking and trying to figure out if that was the worst start for the club previously, but it wasn't. 2003 was the worst start for the LA Galaxy. They started off with 0 wins, 4 losses, 4 draws in their first 8 games. This season has now surpassed that. This is the worst season in LA Galaxy history. Now, if any of you have been following MLS, you know that teams can struggle in the first half of the season. They can make some signings in the summer, and they can try to rebound and make a push for the playoffs. I mean, there's 9 teams that make the playoffs in each conference now, so it's not necessarily hard to make the playoffs. But the LA Galaxy have 3 points in 10 games. This is an uphill battle for the LA Galaxy. There's no doubt about it. And the question is, does Greg Vanney deserve to keep his job? Greg Vanney has won 2 MLS Cups, one with Toronto FC, one with the Galaxy. He helped Toronto FC reach the playoffs the first time in their club history, and he's the only manager to help that's reached the playoffs with Toronto FC. So pretty impressive, right? But when Greg Vanney came into the 2024 season, he was already on the hot seat. A lot of fans had already written him off and were ready to move off of him, and I could understand that. I was kind of like, in the middle, it could go either way if they fired him or kept him. I could see it justified either way. But he was able to bounce back on MLS Cup. But he had a pretty bad season in 2023. Disappointing season where the Galaxy did not make the playoffs, which led to Chris Klein getting fired halfway through the season, and they ended up hiring Will Kuntz, who's been an absolute mastermind for the Galaxy, even though right now it doesn't look like it. But I believe Greg Vanney deserves a lot of the blame for this horrible start. And the reason for that is because MLS is a league that you can luck your way into 2 or 3 wins. It's almost hard to fathom that you can't win 1 game through 10 matches. 0, 7, and 3. It's almost like you're doing it on purpose. I know he's not, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's hard to believe that it's that bad. And most teams in big leagues would fire their coach if their team started winless in 10 matches. That's just a fact. Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, Man City, outside of Pep. But Pep would never be winless in 10 matches, at least in the beginning of the season. I know he had the bad run this summer, but they would never fire it. They would fire any manager. Most clubs would. 99% of clubs would. Big clubs. If their manager started winless in the first 10 games. And I wonder if this is beyond repair because Greg Vanney's voice has become stagnant. Players aren't believing what he's doing. And there's always a new coach bump, like some new fresh blood can kind of get the team going. Do you guys think that Greg Vanney should be fired? Is he the biggest issue? Let me know in the comment section down below. But I believe if Greg Vanney cannot string 1 or 2 wins in the next 4 weeks, you have to fire Greg Vanney. You have to. Now, look, I understand he's won 2 MLS Cups. I understand that he just won MLS Cup with the Galaxy in 2024. And there's always an excuse of why you're not winning. But there is no excuse of why you are winless through 10 matches. No excuse. There are worse teams in this league with less talent that have more wins than the LA Galaxy. And that's just a fact. And if he can't get the job done, someone else can and will. This is a glamorous job. There's a lot of people that would want the LA Galaxy job. It's the most decorated, known club in the United States. It will have some people interested in this position. If he can't win a game in the next month, he should be fired. No questions asked. And he deserves to be fired. I think that you could justify firing him right now. And we'll see if that happens. But it's just absolutely mind-blowing how the Galaxy went from returning to MLS Cup champions after a 10-year drought to the worst start in LA Galaxy history, maybe the worst start in MLS history. Let me know what you guys think down below. What is the biggest issue with the LA Galaxy in 2025? Should they fire Greg Vanney? Who should they get rid of as far as players? Who should they bring in? Let me know down below. Make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the little bell notification so you never miss a video. Until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.